We're starting the streaming start பண்ணிடுறோம் sir. We're just starting the streaming.
நீங்க தான் boss.
இல்ல just we're telling because okay, very good. Okay. And another few minutes we will start the recording. Okay. இப்போதான் இது 5:57 now?
5:59.
Oh, 5:59. Okay. Another 2-3 minutes I will start the recording. Then
Six o'clock now.
Good evening.
good evening, sir. Is Major General Tajuddin, sir. He is an Army Major General. So, hello. Sir, we'll make a beginning so that we'll let the people, because
Yes.
6:05 are already.
Correct.
Good evening, friends. On behalf of Computer Society of India Chennai chapter, ACM Chennai Professional chapter, IEEE Computer Society Madras chapter, Madras Diabetes Research Foundation, and Dr. Mohan's Diabetes Education Academy, I have great pleasure in inviting you for this evening program, which is going to be conducted in two parts. The first part being the release of the book Making Excellence a Habit, The Secret to Building a World-Class Healthcare System in India, written by Dr. Mohan, by Professor M.S. Ananth, former director of IIT Madras and chief architect of IIT Madras Research Park. And he will also address on research and incubation, the facilities available at IIT Madras Research Park. And subsequent to that, Dr. V. Mohan, Chairman and Chief Diabetes of Madras Diabetes Facilities Center and President of Director of Madras Diabetes Research Foundation, will address the gathering on combating diabetes, how technology plays a role in prevention and treatment. So, I would like to give a brief about the book. However, Dr. Professor Ananth will also be explaining about the contents of the book in little later. This book, Making Excellence a Habit, is about one of the few practicing doctors in India who contributed to research, education, and charity in a large measure. It documents the fundamentals of what makes a person to achieve meaningful success. And about the presentation, India has got the dubious distinction of being world capital of diabetes. Diabetes is the root cause of various complications such as diabetic retinopathy, diabetic nephropathy, peripheral neuropathy, and macrovascular disease. The presentation will cover about the killer lifestyle disease diabetes, its complication, best practices to prevent and control it, healthcare systems in India, the roles and process of building one such system. The example is the Madras Diabetes Research Foundation, its objectives and ongoing research with diverse groups of people in India, urban cities and rural areas, and also abroad, assess and control the growth of diabetes, use of technologies such as lab, medical electronics, sophisticated instrumentation analyzers, data banks and data analytics, artificial intelligence and Internet of Things, precision diabetes using genetic profiling, technologies in research, disease prevention strategies, clinical trials and data management, and building a research community and nurturing it to meet the UN's Sustainable Development Goals related to health. So I have pleasure in introducing our guest of honor, Professor M.S. Ananth. He was the director of IIT Madras for 2 terms from 2001 to 2011, July. He is the main architect of world's largest open courseware in technical education, which is popularly known as NPTEL. Professor Ananth also established India's first university-based research park, the IIT Madras Research Park, to promote innovation and entrepreneurship. Professor Ananth has been consistently rated as a very good teacher with several research publications to his credit. He has been a reviewer of many leading chemical engineering journals. Professor Ananth is a fellow of Indian Institute of Chemical Engineers and Indian National Academy of Engineering. He was a member of both Scientific Advisory Committee to the Cabinet and the National Manufacturing Competitiveness Council during 2007 to 2011. Professor Ananth has been a visiting professor in IIT Kanpur, Indian Institute of Science of Bangalore, IIT Bombay, Princeton University and University of Colorado in US and RWTH Aachen, Germany. He had participated in World Economic Forum as member of the Global University Leaders Forum from 2007 to 2011. In 2011 December, Industrial and Engineering Chemistry Research published a special flagship issue in honor of Professor Ananth, a leading researcher, gifted teacher, and visionary leader of higher education in India. So we heartily welcome Professor Ananth for this program. And before I hand over the proceedings to Professor Ananth, I would like to introduce Dr. V. Mohan, who is the chairman and chief diabetologist at Mohan Diabetes Specialty Center, Chennai, an IDF Center of Excellence in Diabetes Care. Dr. Mohan oversees a chain of 50 diabetes centers across 8 states in India and has over 500,000 registered diabetes patients in his centers. He is the president and director of Madras Diabetes Research Foundation, which is popularly known as MDRF, Asia's largest standalone diabetes research center. Deeply interested in research from his undergraduate medical student days, Dr. Mohan has published around 1,350 papers in peer-reviewed journals. This includes around 870 original articles, 310 review articles, and invited editorials and 170 book chapters on diabetes. His research has attracted over 128,000 citations and H index of 135, which is very, very rare for a researcher to get. Dr. Mohan has trained a large number of physicians, diabetologists, in addition to nurses, educators, and received over 180 awards. It is extremely difficult to read out all the awards. However, we would like to include few such as the prestigious Dr. B.C. Roy National Award by Medical Council of India, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Centenary Award from the Indian Council of Medical Research, the highest award for biomedical research in India given by ICMR. He was conferred Dr. Harold Rifkin Distinguished International Service in the cause of diabetes award by American Diabetes Association, and he is the first Indian to receive this award. Recently, he has been conferred the Fellowship of Royal Society, Edinburgh. In 2012, Dr. Mohan was awarded Padma Shri, the fourth highest civilian award of the Government of India for his extensive contribution in the field of diabetes. Dr. Mohan's autobiography, Making Excellence a Habit, The Secret to Building a World-Class Healthcare System in India, was just published by Penguin India, and it is already listed as one of the bestsellers at Amazon India. And we are going to have this book formally released by Professor Ananth, and for our exclusive webinar series for our members and the invitees. So over to Dr. Ananth, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohan. I'm indeed delighted to be here. Dr. Mohan, the diabetologist, requires no introduction to an audience in Chennai particularly. But in any case, it's my honor to be here today, to be able to release that book. Mohan, HR Mohan, asked me to speak about research and incubation as well in the context of the research park of IIT Madras. So let me begin. I'll say a few words about the research park and the thoughts that went into the research park as far as research is concerned, applied research, and also then talk a little bit about the book. I read the whole book in one sitting. It's a very nicely written book. It reads very easily. I was a little puzzled by its order because it's not necessarily chronological. But then I realized that Dr. Mohan wanted to emphasize different characteristics of head and heart, his own characteristics that have actually led to the success of his endeavors. And so it's sort of in the order of, you might say, qualities of head and heart that Dr. Mohan possesses. Let me start first with the research and incubation. Let me begin by saying that the traditional university is based on Renaissance thinkers' ideas, particularly 3 ideas. The first is that there is a unity in the diversity around us. Second is that the non-living things actually obey laws. The Renaissance thinkers didn't say anything about living things. The third point they made is that this unity can be discovered only by a combined study of engineering and science, of the natural sciences as well as the applied sciences. Applied sciences would include engineering and medicine, and the natural sciences would be the others. And also, they will also include humanities and social sciences. So they said it's a combined study of all these that can lead to an understanding of the unity in the diversity around us. And their main primary purpose of the university was to discover this unity. This is in contrast to the industry which thrives on differences. Unless your product is different from that of the neighbor, you can't sell your product. You don't have a special selling point. So it's a different approach to life. Both are valid. So there is a meeting point, but on the other hand, the approach is fundamentally different. The traditional university, however, has come under some pressure in recent years. Actually, in the last about 70 years, in the developed world 70 years ago. In India, the pressure has come in the last 20 years. This is from the global economy. The global economy requires two things. One is it requires a higher level of education among its population. So it requires a higher, what you call GER, the gross enrollment ratio in higher education. It needed, when we started the research park and we were thinking of NPTEL in 2000, the UN report said you need a GER of 30%, which means 30% of all the children eligible for higher education should have had a higher education. Unfortunately, at that time in India, it was only about 15%. So this was a strong necessity. The second point that the global economy demanded was that you needed innovation. I mean, I was myself very shocked to find out in the 90s that about 35% of the gross income of developed countries comes from intellectual property rights. That means the innovation is that important. I mean, the colonial powers had actual property in our country and they made a lot of money out of it. Now they have intellectual property which they sell to us and they still continue to make money. And I was also puzzled by the fact that when I looked at only a sample of innovations in Silicon Valley in the 90s, I found a significant fraction had Indian names in it. And a significant fraction of that had IITian names in it. So in fact, I wanted to improve the innovation ecosystem in India. And one of the ways of doing it is through the research park. In fact, I told Ministry of HRD, now called Ministry of Education, I told them what Louis Pasteur said. He said, discovery is the result of chance meeting a prepared mind. And I told them, we've been preparing minds for 50 years and chance is meeting them in Silicon Valley. So it's about time chance met them in our backyard. And they agreed. But it took all of 10 years to establish this research park. It was a 400 crore project. And I needed 100 crores from the government of India. But I must say they were very nice about it. I did get the 100 crores, but it took 6 years. It took 6 to 8 years, almost 8 years before I actually got the money. Simultaneously, I wanted land from the Tamil Nadu government because I didn't want to locate the research park on the educational campus. I told the chief secretary that I wanted the chief secretary at that time was looking at the MGR film city, which was closing down. That was 40 acres there. So I asked him for 12 acres in that. And he said, you've got 630 acres. How come you're asking me for 12 of very expensive land? I told him, I have 630 acres of pure academic land. I only worship Saraswati there. If you want me to worship Lakshmi with you and with the industry together, give me land across the road. And he was a remarkably enlightened chief secretary, Mr. Narayanan at that time. And he immediately said yes. And then said, but don't get excited. If I say yes, no, you will get the land in 6 years. It was 2002. And then the file went back and forth. And finally, I got the land in 2008. In 2010, we started the research park. But I want to say the following about managing creativity in the university. The university is the source of all creativity. mainly because you have very young minds who have new ideas. And to manage creativity, you need different approaches. There are science in the university advances through discovery and invention. For these, what you need to do is to collect together unlike minds and give them all the facilities you can. And if you are the director of the institute, you pray, because sometimes very talented people join, don't do anything, and retire. So you have to then pray. But in the case of innovation, which has an economic component, you have to still bring people together. This was really invented by the American industry to a large extent after World War II. The Bell Labs, for example, did this. They brought people from different disciplines together, put them into a group, forced interactions, but otherwise they had tremendous freedom to do whatever they wanted. And this is how creativity is actually produced. The atmosphere of creativity is produced in the university. So in the case of innovation, you have to have a proper ecosystem and a setup that brings people together. And unlike minds, in this case, can be of different types. They could be unlike in culture, because while science is universal, the scientist has a cultural background and therefore a set of prejudices. It always helps to have people from different backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, so that at least some prejudices are overcome easily. Then you need interdisciplinarity. You need different disciplines in the same campus. Unfortunately, in India, we don't have medicine and engineering in the same campus. So our biomedical innovations are not very high in the list. And I think we need this together, and we've not been able to do this so far. I tried, in fact, Kharagpur has a medical program, but I wanted a medical program that does not come under the purview of the MCI, because I felt that would curtail us, and I couldn't manage that. But we did look at, we wanted to set up the research park, and we started very seriously in 2001, asking, as I said, the government of India for money and the government of Tamil Nadu for land. I got both of them, and finally we did start the research park. We started with a 200 crore budget and became 400 crores by the time all the sanctions were obtained. But I must say the industry has been very supportive, and we had 85% occupancy in the first phase. The second phase is what Professor Bhaskar Ramurthy has created now. He's completed that, and the whole park is ready, and it's been a revelation. I must tell you some things. When Dr. Chidambaram was the chairman of IIT Madras, he was then the principal scientific advisor to the cabinet, and he said, he wanted me to go to US to join a meeting of the Association of University Research Parks in 2006. So I asked Dr. Chidambaram, what research park are we talking about? Because there was none in India. And then he said, you're the only one talking about it, so you go. So he sent me there, and I went there, and the Chinese delegate was the first one. She spoke up and said, we have a very modest program in China. We have only 100 research parks planned, only 100 acres per research park, only $1.2 billion per research park of federal aid. So I put up my hand and said, can I go last? Because I was the next speaker scheduled. But I wasn't allowed, so I went up there and said, 200 crore research park with 10 acres of land and so on. And I must say the Chinese have overdone it. But on the other hand, for a country of the size of India, we need at least 100 research parks like the IIT Madras Research Park. But I also must tell you that in 2006, the Secretary of Commerce asked me to come to Delhi to receive an award for the academic institution with the largest number of patents. And I said, there must be some mistake. We had only 6 patents last year. He said others had less. So, so this is peculiar because we are actually very innovative people, but we didn't have this habit of patenting. And therefore, we didn't do a good job of this. And we need to do this in order to maintain your intellectual property rights and earn money. So anyway, I must tell you that after the research park was started, within 2 years, we reached 120 patents per year. So it's now well over 120 patents a year. So this is because you're bringing together in the research park 3 kinds of minds. In terms of attitude, they're unlike. It's the student who doesn't care if he makes a mistake. He's full of ideas and he's all the time telling you what may work. And then there is the professor who at least verifies that the second law of thermodynamics is not violated. So you have these experts. And then you need the industry specialist who can spot an opportunity in the marketplace. And I think this is important. The industry has a habit of patenting a lot of things. Only a small fraction of the patents pay dividends, but they pay huge dividends when they do. For example, Stanford has a huge investment in Google. And they did that because when Google was then a starting company and they acquired a lot of shares. And so I think it's simply a matter of not only being innovative, then getting a share of the profits in order to do your research, because the research is becoming more and more expensive. And so you do need this meeting of unlike minds, unlike in discipline, unlike in culture, and unlike in attitude. The research park is about minds, unlike minds, who have different attitudes. And we found that the research park has functioned very well. It's not that we knew everything beforehand, but it has worked out very well. The industry takes a large number of interns, student interns. We have 200 student interns in the research park, and many of them automatically are selected by the industry to continue with them. So this is one of the things that we found out was that we also needed incubation support and venture capital in India. While venture capital is readily available in the US, venture capital is not available so readily in India. When the venture is no longer a venture, then you get money. But when people start and the whole thing is risky, you don't get money so easily, although things are improving in India now. So we felt that the research park should save space for incubation. It should allow small companies to startups to be located in the research park and get sufficient support in non-technical matters, because technology is only, while it's at the heart of a startup, it's only a small part of the whole thing. You need a lot of support in terms of building up core competency in other areas, in related areas, financial support, sustainable competitive advantage, in estimating the market size and value, and so on. And there are many experts who we were very pleasantly surprised to find were very willing to share this knowledge. In fact, Dr. Mohan talks about the importance of sharing knowledge in his book. And we find a large number of these generous minds are actually willing to share this knowledge and help youngsters get started. So the research park has, in IIT Madras, is about 85% of the space for established research organizations that will interact with us, and 15% for startups. And we have a whole program of incubation. And there is, for healthcare, there is a huge biotechnology center that's been set up for well over 10 crores. And Dr. Ban, the then secretary, decided to set up in the research park. So we were able to get space there, and some of the products from there have been very, very innovative. It only requires a lot of interaction between doctors and engineers, which happens there. We don't have it on campus, but we have a meeting of doctors and engineers in the research park. We also have a meeting of many faculty and students in the research park with industry people. One of the secrets that Bell Labs discovered was that we don't always think with our heads, we seem to think with our stomachs. So they provided a very good restaurant in there. And we have done the same thing here. It works beautifully. Nothing like a good meal to make people relax and talk informally. They're able to exchange ideas, and if we find our alumni also interact with us differently in the research park, because they feel as if it's a neutral venue. Whereas they come to the IIT, they begin to feel like students of old. So they don't quite open up as well as they do in the research park. But it's worked out very well, and incubation is particularly working out well. In fact, IIT Madras has the largest number of what they call deep technology startups. We have a center for innovation in the IIT campus itself, and this is run by students. We gave them 2 crores, and the 1981 batch gave another 2 crores, so we put 4 crores together. This Center for Innovation has a motto: walk in with an idea, walk out with a product. And this has worked out quite well. Many of these projects that were done in the Center for Innovation are now bearing fruit in the research park, because they then expand. The electric scooter, for example, only thing is the electric scooter thing became so big, the project became so big, they had to move out of the research park. They were becoming too big for the research park itself. And so I would say, overall, the two new things in the university that the taxpayer demands of the university is two things. One is to produce this increase in the general enrollment ratio, which we have done through NPTEL to a large extent. And the other is the innovation through research parks. I think we need 100 research parks at least. In a country like the US has 150. And it's not as if the research park immediately makes money. In fact, when I went to this meeting of the University Research Parks Association, there was a North Carolina has a huge triangular research park. And the president of the research park spoke and said, research parks are a wonderful economic proposition. They make money very quickly. We started in 1959. We broke even in 1989. So they didn't really break even till 30 years later. But now they're doing wonderfully well. You can't tell when a particular thing will click. You have to do the translation and you have hope all the circumstances are right for making money as well. So this does happen. There's also a lot of disruptive technology that's developed. So it also upsets existing companies. But I think it's a good idea for industry and the university to come together in a research park. Because if they come to the university itself, to the campus itself, they tend to, like they said, they once asked me, when are your students, when are they going to learn to be lean, mean and hungry? And I said, I hope never. This is all right in a competitive industrial atmosphere. On a campus, you don't want them to be lean, mean and hungry. Lean maybe, but not mean and hungry. But this, I find the university, after we created the research park, the industry people, when they cross over and come and speak to our students, they speak our language much more than they did before. So I think it's been a very enjoyable journey in the research park. And I think incubation is a very important component. We are learning a lot. I'm sure Dr. Mohan will be able to give us a lot of advice. If he participates in the research park, he'll also be able to help startups, especially medical startups in particular. Having said that, now let me get to the topic of today's discussion, that is about the releasing the book that has been, that Dr. Mohan has written. And it is Making Excellence a Habit is a refreshingly interesting autobiography. The footnote, the secret to building a world-class healthcare system in India is, however, clearly a matter of having Dr. Mohan at the helm of affairs. So I think he can modestly say, put this footnote there and try and tell you the characteristics that help. But it's clearly having a man with a vision there. I'm reminded of a preface to a thermodynamics book by Lewis and Randall. Lewis is a great chemist in the University of California. And he says, when you visit ancient monuments, remarkably beautiful monuments, you're often overawed by their beauty. And you talk in hushed tones, you wonder how they were built and so on. He says, just step back and think of visiting the same place when it was being constructed. He says, then you would have heard the workers screaming, making noises, the sound of hammers and nails and so on. And then he said, you then realize that such a monument is actually the result of ordinary human effort given a direction and purpose by a vision. So what you need clearly is a vision and a focus on the vision, as he points out in his book. Buddha would call it mindfulness, I think. But Dr. Mohan calls this focus, and he essentially, the book is full of examples from his life demonstrating the effectiveness of many qualities of his head and heart. Self-discipline, hard work, resilience, grit, passion, mindfulness, commitment, empathy, integrity, and positive thinking. Every one of these, he has an example. And the number of chapters increases because you have to list the number of qualities required. And also, he walks the talk when he describes the power of collaboration, team building, empowering the team members, handling stress, knowing when to laugh, mentoring, and entrepreneurship. I think very, very often you find disappointment when you go along and you have to learn to laugh. Because if you don't laugh, then the others don't either. You're the leader of the team. Dr. Mohan talks at length about serendipity playing a role in his success. But I think he overlooks Louis Pasteur's famous observation that it takes a prepared mind to benefit from serendipitous occurrences. So unless you have a prepared mind, you can't take advantage of that. He also has has had an enviable rapport with his father and was indeed fortunate that his wife was a soulmate and a pillar of strength, especially during stressful times. It is indeed a pity that they are not here today. All creativity is the result of synergy between the logical left brain and the intuitive right brain. And Dr. Mohan talks about the importance of this synergy. He concludes on a reflective note, emphasizing the role of spirituality, prayer, and true love. Qualities that have helped him face success and occasional failure with enviable equanimity. There are two important lessons from the Bhagavad Gita that he appears to have internalized completely. Karmanyeva dikaraste mapalesh kadasana. And Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat, na bruyat satyam apriyam. So I think both of these are things that he seems to have internalized. So he always has a spine. He seems to be able to face adverse circumstances with the spine, and that helps a lot. So on this August occasion, I want all of us to wish him many more years of professional success and recognition and many happy and healthy years in his personal life. So Dr. Mohan, I want to congratulate you. If I am supposed to release the book, and our alumnus Mohan, who invited me, says, hold the book up. So I'll do so accordingly. So this is the book we are releasing, the Making Excellence a Habit. So then I'll hand the mic over to Dr. Mohan for his comments.
Should I start straight away, Mohan?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Professor Ananth, for your excellent narration about the book. And you are making every one of us to go and immediately buy the book. Looks like that. The way you have presented, really tempting. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thank you.
Now, Dr. Mohan, please.
Thank you, Professor Ananth. I really enjoyed your talk on the entrepreneurship as well as the IIT Madras Research Park. I have visited a couple of times and I've seen some of the great work going on there. In fact, I do have a visiting professorship at the IIT Madras. So I've given several talks at IIT Madras. On one of those occasions, I went to the park and spent some time there. A couple of times we've had discussions about taking various things forward, and they had taken my ideas on a few things, but I must say that we have not followed up on some of those, and it needs more interaction. I hope that after this COVID, we'll have more interactions. Thank you also for releasing the book as well as for your kind words. What I'll do now is that since time is running, I'll now try to get my slides first. Oops, that's not bad. And I made a mistake. Okay. Either I think I'll have to first open that. Oops. Sequence is going wrong. Either portrait, window, portrait. And something in the thing I'm making a mistake. I'll click on it, share portrait. You're able to see? Small?
No, we are getting the window. Okay, you must open the window of your presentation.
Let me start again. First, let me open that. Then I'm not able to put this. You are presenting first in Nirtita. Probably it will stop presenting program. Okay. Then let me first open this. Is it present now? Window. Then
where the PPT has been opened.
PPT. I'll open the PPT. But PPT open button, I'm not able to see the thing to share button. I'll click on it.
No, the bottom.
It's not.
At the bottom, you will find, sir.
Yeah, the PPT irukku but idhula share போட்டுட்டு
share
இப்போ வரும் நினைக்கிறேன்.
No, again you are saying the full window, not the PPT window.
You're not seeing the PPT now also?
No.
Okay.
You have to share the PPT window. Okay,
let me stop presenting. Present now, window. Next, I have to, now I'm able to see the small screen there. Do I press on the PPT now? If I put the PPT, then I can't see this to say share.
No, just try the PPT window. Click on the PPT window.
Yeah, I've opened it. Now I open this again, I think. Yeah, 1 second. Yeah. Now share. Okay. I will share. Got it. Now you can see, no?
Yes.
Now you can see, no? Okay.
Yes.
I'll make it full screen now.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll present like this itself. It's okay?
Yeah, fine. Fine, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mohan, and all the organizers for inviting, first of all, for this releasing of the book here. It's very nice of you to have a nice gesture on your part to release this book. It was formally released, of course, by Mr. Venu Srinivasan a few days ago. The second time formally it's being released. And the title of I'm not going to talk about the book much because I think Prof. Ananth has talked enough about it. I'm going to talk about combating diabetes and how technology plays a role in prevention and treatment. After again thanking Mr. Mohan, Professor Ananth, and of course the Computer Society of India, ACM, the IEEE Computer Society, and all the organizers of this event. I have no conflict of interest to declare. So Mr. Mohan is particular, he gave me all the topics to talk about, and it's a very large list, and I told him I don't think in the given time I can cover all of them. I'll try to do justice to some of them. I'll talk a little bit about the increasing prevalence of diabetes, then talk about one success story, at least from Chennai, what was done to curb the epidemic. Then, since you're all computer experts, I thought I should talk a little bit about the role of electronic records, and then a little bit about tele-diabetology, and then what we did with tele-diabetology during the lockdown. Now, first, let me start with this to show you how diabetes has been increasing in India. Now, it's just a coincidence that it was in 1972 that the first formal study of diabetes done in a proper epidemiological study in a manner all over the country was done. Until then, they used to do some camp in some exhibition or something and then say what is the prevalence of diabetes. That is very erroneous because you get a biased sample. But Dr. Ahuja from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, 1972, did the first study. And that's the year actually I started working with my father, 1972. So that's exactly the period when I have been working on diabetes as well. So at that time, the prevalence of diabetes in cities was about 2%, whereas in rural areas, it was about 1%. When you say adults, about 20 years of age. So you take adults about 20 years of age, 2% had diabetes in major cities like Chennai, Delhi, Mumbai, etc. Over a period of time, this started increasing. 2% became 4, 5, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and so on. But these are not really in the same place. There are a lot of studies from Chennai because we have been very active there, and also some from Delhi. But they are really not a planned studies. One study of Chennai, then after another study was done. But even with that, it was very clear that the prevalence was going up, reached double figures. And then now the latest study, the big one which we published in 2015, shows a prevalence of about 23% in Chennai and 25% in Delhi. So it's from 2%, there's more than a 10-fold, 12-fold increase in prevalence of diabetes in urban areas. Look at what happened in rural areas. 1.5 has become 16%. In some states like Kerala, for example, it's even more. It's more than in the urban area because in Kerala, there is no urban and no rural. So huge increases, 10 to 12%. And that's something about which I'm going to talk. If you translate this into numbers of people with diabetes in India, this is not my statistics from the International Diabetes Federation. In 2019, already 77 million people with diabetes in India. That's more than the population of UK or France or Germany. And if you take 2030, the projection is it will increase to 100 million and then a few years later 134 million. Now, whenever they project like this from 77 to 101 million and so on, we find that they say it will take 11 years to reach there. But in 4 or 5 years, we normally reach that figure. Always the projections are very conservative. So very soon we are going to have about 100 million people with diabetes in India. And if you look at it actually, truly if you look at it, There are very few countries in the world which have more than 100 million population. So that's the number of people with diabetes in India. Now, where did this data actually come from? Now, this is my daughter, who's the first author of this paper, Anjana, and she's a third generation diabetologist in the family. And when she was growing up and she was doing her MBBS and MD, she came and told me, Papa, all your studies are Chennai based. They're of no use at all. We have to do a whole India study. Only then, we'll get the true picture. And of course, I didn't have the energy or the wherewithal to do that. But then she persisted, and then ICMR funded this, and this became the world's largest population-based study, truly representative of the whole of India. And in 2017, we published this in Lancet Diabetes when we finished 15 states. I'm happy to say that we finished all the 30 states, and she continues to lead this particular study. I'm not going to go into the details of the study, but to tell you that this was the point she's trying to make, that she says you take Tamil Nadu or you take Chennai and you project it for the whole country, and that's not true. For example, you see here Bihar, it's 4% diabetes, going up to 13% in Chandigarh. And today now, of course, this Tamil Nadu and Chandigarh and so on are 10-year-old data now. It's taken 10 years to do the study. In Goa and in Kerala, today this whole state is about 20%. And we're trying to now resample Tamil Nadu to see whether Tamil Nadu has also reached 20%. Now, the other thing that this shows you is the GDP. If you look at the GDP of each state, it kind of correlates with the diabetes prevalence. So the lowest GDP in Bihar and the lowest diabetes in Bihar. If you look at Chandigarh Union Territory, had the highest GDP at that time and the highest diabetes prevalence as well. So as people become more affluent, and we'll talk about that, they put on weight and become obese. And I'm glad Professor Ananth mentioned about the lean part, because leanness is very important as a student if you have to prevent leanness as adults. But the point is that, it's no longer a disease only of rich people and so on. It started affecting the poor. Now, this is a more recent study published only a couple of months or 3 months ago, where we looked at what's the lifetime risk of diabetes in metropolitan cities. This is using some mathematical modeling, the Markov simulation model, using actual data. I showed you that 25% in Delhi and 23% in Chennai. Using that, we projected. And what we showed was that if you're 20 years old and you live in Chennai or in Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, or Kolkata, and if you're overweight or obese, your chance of getting diabetes in your lifetime is close to 90%. So only 10% will escape if you're obese and you're 20 years old today. And that's why the students, if they're lean, it's better. But look at the lean ones. Even if you're normal weight or underweight, there's still a 45% chance that you will get diabetes. So half of the lean people among youngsters will also get diabetes. That's how high the risk is in cities of India. And then that's why India is referred to as the diabetes capital of the world. We are not very much worried about the diabetes numbers. We're worried about the complications due to diabetes. And here are the 5 major complications: heart, feet, eyes, kidney, and nerves. Now, these figures that you see here, urban and rural, all come from our own studies. We have done in Chennai proper epidemiological studies done using standardized WHO-approved techniques, and therefore published in the best journals in the world. And you can see that overall, if you take a figure, about a quarter of people will ultimately develop kidney disease or eye disease or go blind and so on. Now, this itself translates, if you take the 80 million number, to about 20 million people who have diabetic complications like diabetic kidney disease. And if you just imagine that, let's say a quarter of these people progress to end-stage kidney disease, renal failure itself, and there's only 2 treatments available, either a dialysis you do or a transplantation you do. And even if you take 1/4 of these people progressing, it's 5 million people with end-stage kidney disease. Where are you going to get 5 million kidneys from? You cannot get 5 million, you cannot even get 5,000 kidneys for transplantation. So the only thing you can do is prevention. And that is why the rest of my talk, I'm going to talk about prevention. Because unless you prevent diabetes and bring down the diabetes numbers and control it well, you will not be able to prevent these complications. So the question arises, why this massive increase in diabetes in India? Now, I would put it to you that things have changed very dramatically. Not the genes. We have done a lot of work on genetics. We have done Jiva studies. We have published Nature Genetics on the genes in Indians and diabetes and so on. But that's not the major contributor. Always, we are told, in 1971, you had 2% and in 2015 you have 22%. Did the genes change in 20, 40 years? Definitely not. We were all having the same genes and we were all alive in 1970 and alive now also. Our genes didn't change. What changed was the environment. The environment completely changed. Instead of carrying weights on their head, people now carry only cell phones on their head. Instead of playing in the field, this is how children are playing now. They're sitting and they're playing all the time. They're not moving about. And look at our youngsters working to US timings, and therefore the sleep also goes away. And the night, what do you get to eat? You'll order your Pepsi and your cola and your chips and your burgers and the fast foods and so on. So all the traditional meals that we ate in the house is all gone. And this is what they're eating. High in sugar, high in fat, high in calories, high in everything. And this leads to three things. One is your glycemic load goes up. Your carbohydrate load and your glycemic load goes up, the amount of sugar you take. Second, your physical activity goes down very dramatically. And the third is urbanization. And with urbanization comes pollution and many other things which you cannot even measure. Now, is there evidence for all of these? I'm talking all these with evidence. Each one of these is supported by scientific evidence. Here is one of the first studies, study with Dr. Ms. Sudha Vasudevan from our team, the head of head of nutrition, food and nutrition. I saw her name also attending the session today. So she and her team, we looked at it and we found that the prevalence of diabetes, we divided Chennai city into 4 quartiles. The least amount of carbohydrate you take, which is of course white rice for us, second quartile, third quartile, and the fourth quartile. By the time you go from the first quartile to fourth quartile, the amount of carbohydrate goes up from about 200 grams to 400 grams. Now, for this increase from 200 grams to 400 grams of rice per day, the diabetes prevalence goes up 4-fold. Now, what does it mean? If the diabetes prevalence is, say, 6% here, it becomes 24% there. If it is 8% here, it becomes 32% there. So that is what is causing diabetes. You may say, no, but that may be due to obesity because they're eating more rice. That has been already corrected in the logistic regression analysis. We already corrected for body mass index, gender, family history of diabetes, smoking, and income, physical activity, and so on. So there seems to be a direct link between rice intake and diabetes. More recently, we published a 15-year follow-up of 134,000 people in 21 countries and 5 continents. And I was joint first author for that paper where we looked, it's a pure study. And in the pure study, we showed, this is cross-sectional data. We looked at longitudinal data, people who did not have diabetes 15 years ago, how many of them developed diabetes, and is rice intake related to that? And it was very strongly related in South Asian countries, including Bangladesh, India, and so on, where rice intake is very, very high. So there's no doubt that excess carbohydrate in the form of white rice or polished wheat raises the glycemic load and thereby pulls out all the insulin from your pancreas because you need more insulin to keep the sugars down. Eventually, the beta cells fail and then you get diabetes. But another one which contributes is physical inactivity. So physical, and this is another study which we published. Now we took the rice factor out and we just looked at physical inactivity. Those who had heavy physical activity at that time in 2005, in one of our Chennai studies, the prevalence of diabetes was 5%. Whereas if you're sedentary, it increased to 17%. So here is an independent risk factor. So rice is one factor, too much of carbohydrate. Second is not doing exercise. And both these are, of course, preventable and controllable. You can start exercising, you can reduce your rice intake, isn't it? And that's a sure way of preventing diabetes. Do you have evidence that you can prevent it? Yes, we have. I may not be able to show you all the data, but we have a lot of randomized clinical trials which we have done to prove that you can actually prevent diabetes. So let me go on to one success story which we did in Chennai. This is a very interesting community-based study, and hence you'll be interested in that. Now, this is in fact the first epidemiological study that we did, a small one, before we went to INDIAB and all big ones. We took the small study. And in this study, what we did was called CUP study, Chennai Urban Population Study. We took only 2 because the first experience with epidemiology, first time a doctor stepping out into the community to do epidemiological work in Chennai. So what happened was we took a low-income group. This was in T Nagar, and then a slum, basically. And then in Tirumangalam, the Ashoka Colony was there. And there we took the middle-income group. And even if you just look at this, at that time, this is about 15 years ago or so, if you just look at this, you will predict that they'll have more diabetes in the middle-income group because they have cars, they're richer, probably their body mass index and weight is more, they're probably eating more, obesity is more, probably. And so the hypothesis was that they will have more diabetes and these people will have virtually no diabetes, we thought, because they are walking, they hardly eat 2 meals a day, they're living in a slum, they have other diseases, tuberculosis and other diseases, but we thought they will not have diabetes. But believe it or not, at that time, there was no study at all, which has ever been done in a city anywhere in the world, comparing a low-income group and a middle-income group. So we thought this is a gold mine, let us study and get our hands and feet wet by doing epidemiology. So this was the result. Not surprisingly, the middle-income group did have a higher prevalence, almost double. But we didn't expect this 6% in the low-income group. These are auto rickshaw drivers and people like this. So we didn't think that they'll have 1% diabetes, but they already had 6% diabetes. And this group had 12% diabetes. So our hypothesis was correct. Okay, and we published this in a very good journal, the top British journal, Diabetic Medicine, in the year 2001. Almost 20 years ago, we published this. But having done this, we said, we just can't go into a community and publish a paper and keep quiet, because this is going to increase. From what we know, as obesity increases and as the affluence increases, this is going to increase from 12 to whatever. And we cannot allow sitting there, we cannot share the results with them. So what we did was we went to the middle income group, we went to the low income group, there were no takers there. They were not even bothered about diabetes and so on in 2000. Whereas this group was more aware and they said, what should we do to reduce our diabetes? I said, it's going to go up much more, okay? And it might even double from where it was earlier. So therefore, you have to do something. So they said, what can we do? Because we told them about rice and so on, but we also told them about physical activity. Then they said, there is no place to walk. If you start walking in Chennai, dog will bite us, we can get rabies, or a truck will hit us and we'll die, or the pollution will kill us. So actually our lifespan will come down if you start walking. So we said, no, find a safe place to walk. There is no safe place to walk. As we were talking, I think I have that video. Oops, video doesn't work. Oh, unless it's in full screen. It's not. I thought it will work. Okay, failed. So this is the Ashoka Colony, and it's a pity that it didn't. I think in Google, what happens is these videos don't work. I think it works on Zoom. Okay, so this is Ashoka Colony. I'll tell you about it. So this is Ashoka Colony, and just next to Ashoka Colony was a vacant plot of land. So we were standing here and discussing with them and said, you should walk. They said, where do we walk here? When the road is, so crowded, we can't walk. So we said, what is this plot of land? They said, no, that is for Ashoka Colony number 2. We are going to build another one. So we said, why do you need Ashoka Colony number 2? Why don't you build a park there? They said, how can you build a park? The government has to do it. They said, ask the government. They asked the government said, no, we don't have money. So I said, why don't you guys build a park? If you build a park, it'll be the first time in history that people built a park. So after a lot of negotiation, they got permission from the corporation, government, they built a park. That is what I was trying to show you, but unfortunately the video is not working. So this was one of the best parks because it was built by them and it became such a big hit that newspapers writing about it, WHO was writing about it. It became a big success story. And, people building their own park, empowering of people and so on. This led to another park being built and another in Harrington Road, another one came, then somewhere else, another one came. And the government woke up, oh my God, people are building their own park. We better build the park. Election was coming. So they built 100 new parks and renovated another 100 parks. So through this Ashoka Colony, finally, Chennai got 200 parks, 100 new and 100 renovated. So it was a kind of a revolution which we started there. Remember why we did all this. We did all this trying to prevent diabetes. So what happened to that? We went back. First of all, did the exercise increase in the colony? When we started this project, it was about 13% of people who were exercising. By the time the park was built and the park started functioning well, the number of exercisers in those colonies plus neighboring colonies went up to 52%. So 1 in 2 of everybody there was exercising. Remember, there are a lot of old people who have joint problems, some women can't do that, and so on. This is a huge increase, 277% increase. Again, WHO got very excited and said, this is the first time that people themselves have done it, and so on. Now the big question came, what happened to the diabetes? Now, remember, I was telling you that by the time diabetes slowly increasing, I showed you that graph, 2%, 8%, but this is where we had gone. I told you 12% was the prevalence of diabetes. So I had predicted at that time that we'll reach 20-25% in a few years from then. And as we had predicted, it had actually gone up to around 18% at this time when we went back to those colonies. We went back about 10 years later to study what happened. Now, this is an average of about 18%, which represents the poor people also. But in the middle income colonies, like the Asiatic colony, we didn't study the Asiatic colony at that time, we went back to it, already it had reached 22%. So from somewhere 12%, it had reached 22%. So we went back and said, okay, that means in a colony where there is already exercise, it should be lower. That was our hypothesis. So is it really lower or not? Let's see what happened. So remember, it was 12%. When we went back in 2007, after 6 years, there was only a modest increase of 15%. By the time it's already reached 20% in the other similar income colonies. So we were convinced that it is because of this exercising, because the obesity rates have started plateauing there, that this was achieved. Now let's see what happened to the low-income colony. The low-income colony, remember, we didn't do anything. We just left them alone. So it was 6% initially. So we thought, okay, it might have gone to about 8% or so. Okay, we were shocked when we found that in the low-income group, because there's no intervention there, this increased to 15.3. Now earlier it was double in the middle-income group. Now it's equalized. So in this paper, which we reported in Diabetes Science and Technology, the title of the paper was Equalization of Diabetes Prevalence Rates in Chennai in the middle and the low income group. And later on, when my daughter did the INDIAB study, today we find the poor people having more diabetes than the middle income group or the rich people. The rich people are taking care of themselves. They go to gyms, they jog, they do everything, and they cut down their diabetes rate. The poor people are eating whatever they can get. They don't know about obesity, and then their rates are going up. So technically, we know it's a mistake that we made, and it's not ethical. We didn't know it at that time, but it's ethical to not ethical to leave these people out, because they have also got a very high chance of getting diabetes. And therefore, this is an example of translational research through community empowerment. What was epidemiology was then translated into diabetes prevention. And this is a success story, which is again and again being quoted all over the world. Now, there are other success stories. I don't have time. I'm now switching tracks and going to the role of diabetes electronic medical record, because this is something which...
Dr. Mohan, are you moving the slides? Still, we are seeing the Asiatic colony slide.
I have moved it now. It's come to electronic medical records.
No, I think this slide is not moved.
Oh.
We are still seeing the Asiatic colony.
This one, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me probably... Only in this mode it probably move. Now?
Now it's moving. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
this, I think in that mode, it doesn't even move in this system. That's what happens. Okay. So from this is what I'm saying, 13% to 52%. And then the prevalence of diabetes was going up. And I was trying to say that in the low income group, it was now equal the middle income group, and the huge increase in the middle income group. Now I'm moving on to the role of diabetes electronic medical records in diabetes management. Now, we started electronic medical records in 1991. This is the year I left my father's center. And one of the arguments I had with my father was he didn't believe in electronic records at all. He said, it's not necessary. All my life, I've been writing my notes, and you continue to write your notes. I said, we can't do research. How can you analyze data, thousands of data? He said, no, you can put somebody on the job and so on. So when I came out, I said, first thing we'll do is to start electronic record. Without this, there is no future for research. And so we started it in a humble way, and then started expanding. Became fully online with the electronic medical record system in 1996, upgraded the software, moved to cloud-based system. Today, we have 520,000 individuals with diabetes in our electronic records, by far the world's largest. Nowhere, anywhere, even nearby, they have. Mayo has 20,000, Jocelyn has 12,000. Some clinics in India have 30, 40,000. Nobody has got more than 100,000 records. We have got 520,000. That's why it becomes so easy to publish papers and so on. It's a very useful tool. We have documented this several times. For example, in several journals, we have documented this. This is how the electronic record flows. Right from the history, they come and register to consultants, to billing, to laboratory, special test, consultant, diet, education, pharmacy, and out. The whole thing is done electronically. And every data is captured. So for example, we'll know how much time a person spent in different places. Somebody complained they waited too long. We can immediately go back and say where it occurred. And that helped us in our maintaining our quality. And that's what excellence is all about. Just one example of our latest Hinai-based system, where you can see the A1Cs over time, and everything is captured in the electronic records. Let me now move on to tele-diabetology in rural Tamil Nadu. Now, urban is fine. You've got a lot of clinics, government, private, everything. But if you look at rural, 72% of India lives in her villages. But 72% of doctors practice in 75% of the doctors practice in urban areas. So it's a complete mismatch. And right from the British days, they've been trying to fix this and get doctors to go to rural areas. Never worked. You don't have electricity, don't have this, don't have that. Doctors are not schools, education, so many things. So they are still not succeeded in giving all the best healthcare in rural areas, although it is improving. Plus, there are other challenges, socioeconomic challenges, awareness challenges, access challenges, and so on. So one day, and this is also covered in my book, my wife and I were sitting and saying, what can we do to pass the 6A test? So what is the 6A test? Make diabetes care available, accessible, affordable, appropriate, acceptable, and accountable in rural India. Can we do this? So we sat and brainstormed, and that is why I said, spiritual things I believe in a lot. As we are doing this, we got a call from the zamindar of a village in Kanjipuram district, Chunampet, and he said, come and see me. So when I went and met him, he said he has got some land, and he said, if you can do something for our poor people in the villages, I'll give you this land free of cost. So we thought it's a very great idea, so we accepted it. So this is Kanjipuram district, and that is Chunampet. And we then went to the World Diabetes Foundation. They gave us the equipment and salary support for 1 or 2 years. ISRO gave us a big satellite. And unfortunately, I think this video won't work. But this is the van. And inside the van, this is the satellite given by ISRO, which actually folds when the van is moving. And inside this van, we have the Doppler and bathymetry, ECG, fundus camera, and everything is there inside this van. And van can go from village to village to village, and completely free of cost, we can check the villages. And again, I'm sure this won't work. So this is how we go and meet the hut. We go to the huts, get informed consent. We took all the local people, the young men and women of Chunampet were taken. We gave them jobs. And then we were able to screen 42 villages with 50,000 population, completely free of cost, with the government of Tamil Nadu giving us a blanket permission to go and do this at their doorstep. And everything was done, of course, completely free of cost. And then the results were quite amazing. Within 3 years, we covered a population not just of those 42 villages, but many others. And 200,000 people were given awareness about diabetes. These 50,000 population had 27,000 adults. We screened almost all of them, found out the newly detected diabetics and those who had diabetes. And then in every one of those who had diabetes, we screened for the complication. That's how we got the rural data, which I showed you. And most importantly, using very low-cost generic drugs, we were able to bring down the 3 months control test, the HbA1c test, within the first 1 year itself by 1%, and then further bring it down later. So this is a huge success. And people immediately picked this up, and the Lancet wrote about this, and they wrote about India healthcare, and they said the Chunampet, they picked up Arvindai Hospital and ours as 2 models, and they said the Chunampet Rural Diabetes Project seems to be a good model for delivering preventive and therapeutic diabetes healthcare to rural areas. This became very famous, and very soon we had CNN, Discovery Channel, the Le Monde in France, the biggest French newspaper, full page, first page newspaper write-up. BBC. Then there's a book called Jugad. Many of you would have seen this. There's a chapter on the Chunampet project in this, and even business magazines wrote about it. How even though you lose money, it's still not really a loss because you're serving people. So it became a very big success story. The last part I want to talk about is our experience with tele-diabetology during the lockdown. What did we do? Now, this also, we collected data and we published it within the first 4 or 5 months of the lockdown. What are the lessons learned, and how did technology used, how was it applied? Now, what we did that time was, the patient can't come. The patient is at home. Neither can the doctor come because it's complete lockdown. So what we did was, we developed a system whereby the patient can give a call to the center, to our call center within the center. Then the dietitian picks that up. It created a system for that. And then the dietitian can take the history from the patient, decide what needs to be done. If blood tests need to be done, we send our van home using all the protective mechanism and so on. and then we get the blood samples into the lab. The lab then gets the samples processed. That is sent to the doctor. Doctor can see everything on the mobile phone and then have the tele-consultation with the patient. And then finally, even the medicines can be delivered into the doorstep. So a complete system we evolved where you can apply this telemedicine right up to the doorstep. Of course, we found, and all the results are there in that paper. But we found when we asked patients, are you fully satisfied? 50% were satisfied, but 50% said, no, we are not able to express all our problems through the phone. I can't hear properly, bandwidth problems. See technology, I'm not even able to show the videos here, in spite of practicing and everything. Yes, because the system changed, because Google thing doesn't accept this. That's a problem with telemedicine and so on. And they said, we want to come and see you face to face. My daughter used to come. So now she, let her come and bring me to the center. You're spending only a few minutes with the patient. You need more time. All kinds of problems were there. So, cut a long story short, for some people, it was good. But for others, they said, no, we prefer face-to-face consultation. So, more work to be done. I want to talk about two technologies I did in this telemedicine. One is what is called as the continuous glucose monitoring. Today, we have a small patch. You put this patch on the hand, and then you have a reader. This patch will continuously tell you your glucose levels throughout the day and night for 14 days without drawing one drop of blood. Thousands of patients, we have used it. We are one of the pioneers to introduce this in the world, and we have the largest series now on this. So for example, it will give you graphs like this from, say, 12 days of the graph. It will show you graphs like this continuously. Anything in yellow means it's above this gray shaded area. This gray shaded area is marked as 70 to say 160 or 180. That is where it should be. Whereas here you can see the sugars are all very high, and it's shown in yellow here. So at one glance, you know that the first 4 days the medicine didn't work, and after the prescription on the 5th day it started working. By day 9, day 10, day 11, all the sugars are under control. There is something called as time and target, and you see it was 0% initially. It's come to 100% by the end of the second week. So we put one more just to see that the sugar is not going low, and you can see that compare this graph with that graph, and you can see that 100% of the time the sugars are now under control. It's almost like a perfect landing of a plane, and no low sugar and beautiful control. This is precision diabetes at its best. And this kind of thing you can achieve with technology. And the patient can put this and sit in the house. They don't even have to come. That small patch can be even couriered to us from anywhere, from Dubai or from Assam. They can, send it, and we can study how their sugar is throughout the day. Now, there are other challenges. For example, for complications, how do you do it through telemedicine? Can you do surgery? You definitely can't do surgery. For that, they'll have to come. For any complication, any emergency, telemedicine doesn't work. They can only tell them come immediately to the hospital. Okay, but there are things which still can be done. For example, you can have a small, like a selfie fundus camera. So you just put it near the eye and take a picture. You can get the eye picture. Okay, and then you know whether diabetic retinopathy is there or not. And we have been, kind of pioneering this. And there was a smartphone developed in India, which is very low cost. And we were the first to validate this in 2015 and publish it in PLOS 1, where we validated the smartphone. We can also get this on the mobile phone today. Okay, and this is all actually technology is actually being used today. Very low cost. It costs about 10% of the cost of a big retinal camera imported called Zeiss or something like that. It's 10% of that cost. Very good quality. This is a Zeiss quality and this is Indian quality. You can see it's very, very good. And we also showed that the next one we showed that you can use this. We mentioned was made about our 50 centers. In all our 50 centers, we don't have ophthalmologists, but in all our 50 centers, we have the camera. So from using the camera, the image can be transferred by email or by WhatsApp or something to one of our hubs in Hyderabad, Bangalore, Calcutta, Chennai, and so on, where ophthalmologists are there. For example, Dr. Rajalakshmi at our center is heading this, and she's been one of the world leaders in this now. And so all the pictures which come from every diabetic patient can be read and sent back within a few minutes' time and tell them whether their eye is normal or not. This has been a fantastic development that we have set up. You can also use artificial intelligence. So through the artificial intelligence, at the moment the picture comes, the cell phone can, through the using the AI, it will tell you whether there's diabetic retinopathy or not, whether it has to be referred or not. And this is the first automated diabetic retinopathy smartphone-based Indian technology that we used. And again, we published this to show that these are all published in the topmost journals, showing that you can deliver quality care using this technology at very low cost. And we have now found a full system to prevent diabetic retinopathy in India. So, and the mobile phone can use to get, thing from glucometer, from blood pressure, ECG, retinal photography, everything can come on a mobile phone now. Finally, before ending, after doing all this, the $1 million question is there proof that people can live long and healthy lives despite diabetes? You may not believe this if I tell you that in people with type 2 diabetes, which is the commonest form of diabetes, that if half of you are listening might have this diabetes, it is type 2 diabetes. There was not a single report in the world that people with type 2 diabetes can live for 40, 50 years and still be healthy. So we wanted to look at that, and because we have our records now for 40, 50 years, going back to my father's time, we were able to concentrate on these people, and we have these electronic records. So this paper became a landmark paper in 2013. This is why the American Diabetes Association gave me that award, the Harold Diskin Award. It's the first paper in the world to show long-term survivors with type 2 diabetes. Minimum 40-year survival, some going up to 50 years and some going up to 60-year survival. This became an instant hit and became one of the best papers published in the field of diabetes. And this is the one which got me the award. So here we are able to show that people can live for 40, 50, 60 years using the lowest technology and using lowest cost treatment. It is not very expensive treatment at all. Then came the next question, but people, can they really live up to 100 years of age? We heard that people with diabetes die and then their lifespan is cut short. This is the first paper, again, we published about 6 months ago. First one in the world to show diabetes above 90 years of age. People living beyond 90, some have crossed 100 years of age. And from our large electronic records, we picked out some 325 people who had lived beyond 90 years and are doing well. And here is a group of such people. Some of these people you may recognize, they don't mind their names being told. This is Professor Chitti Babu, who is Vice Chancellor for many universities. You might recognize some Mr. Sabapati, who is the Chief Secretary. He is, I think, 98 or 99 now. Mr. Chitti Babu lived beyond 100. A few of these people are 99, 100 years old. All of them are about 90 years old. And this is a Victory Over Diabetes Award which we gave. And many of them came walking into the center. And some of them, this lady is a doctor. She sang without a mic. She filled the whole auditorium with a mic. So we are able to prove for the first time that diabetes is not a disease which cuts short your life, but you can live up to 90 or 100 years of age. But to do that, you have to do certain things. You should detect diabetes early. From day one, follow the ABCD mantra. This is something which I enunciated. A1C, less than 7%, blood pressure normal, cholesterol normal, and discipline. ABCD. Discipline includes diet and exercise and stress reduction. The first 10 years, according to me, are very important. If you miss the bus in the first 10 years, you had it, because then you cannot prevent complications. On the other hand, the first 10 years, you keep the sugar under good control, like keeping a tiger in a cage. Then you can go on for the next 40, 50 years without any problem. Of course, exercise is important. Reasonably healthy diet. I won't say that you should not have a single sweet in your life or something like that, but reasonably healthy diet. And of course, stress reduction is important. Most important is regularity of follow-up. All these people who have lived for such a long number of years have come at least 3 to 4 times a year, even if they are okay, because it meant that little tweaking that we do help them to keep their sugars and other parameters under control. So if one follows these mantras, even people with diabetes can hope to live up to 100 years. And I'll end with a quote from my father. He said, when I was 18 and I joined him as a first-year medical student, helping him to set up his clinic when he left the Stanley Mitchell College, he said, a well-disciplined and controlled person with diabetes is often better and healthier than one without diabetes. And of course, being a teenager, I said, because, rhetoric, you have to say something, no, you're a diabetologist. Today, I know the wisdom of what he was saying, because if you're well controlled and you're going every 3 months, you look after your entire system. Your BP will control, cholesterol will control, you won't smoke, you'll start exercising. If you have any other disease, it will be picked up fast. And that's why they end up being healthier. And many of my diabetic patients I can challenge are much healthier than people without diabetes. And that's our mission for life. Jai Hind. So I'll stop here and now should be able to take questions.
So thank you, Dr. Mohan, for your wonderful presentation, giving the historical information about how diabetes got increased in the country like India, where it was so low in 1972 to now almost 25%. And also given how the technology has played, and then your experiments and the gold mine of data on which you have been sitting, and then how you are utilizing it for research finding and so on. It is a really eye opener for many of us. In fact, such an amount of technology is being used in the field of diabetes, and definitely at the end also you have given a lot of hope that people with diabetes can live 100 plus years. So this one way, it is really encouraging. At the same time, you have given some riders that you need to follow certain guidelines. And it is an excellent presentation. I could say that, it's one of the general lectures, what our IT professionals, most of our participants are from IT area, where they are susceptible to diabetes because of their nature of work. So, would you like to give any specific advice or tips for the people, who are working with the computer almost 6 to 7 hours, in front of the monitor, and particularly after the COVID, the system, is tracking their presence. So all the more, they have to be around the monitor. So, would you like to give some advice to people like us?
Sure. I think the first thing I'd like to say is that sitting is a new smoking. So the more you sit, it's like a smoker can get heart attacks and all other kind of complications. Like that, sitting is a new smoking. So every hour you have to get up and walk for 2 minutes. If you're wearing an Apple Watch, it'll remind you, wing, it'll go. That means it's time for you to get up and walk for 2 minutes. And you won't believe it, ever since I started wearing a watch, not that I used to sit for hours earlier, but after this, I get so it'll tell you 12 hours a day, minimum you'll have to stand for at least 2 minutes. I end up 17, 18 hours, doing that. And so things like that, simple things like that is number one. Number two is, of course, you should, in addition to that, have a regular walking. We talk about the 10,000 steps. Now, 10,000 steps you cannot get just by, walking inside one room and all that. You may get 3,000, 2,000. You won't get the 10,000 unless you've gone for a long walk. So if you get, say, 5,000 to 6,000 steps in the morning or evening with a long walk, then you'll easily get your 10,000 steps. You should see that not one single day you should miss your 10,000 steps. In fact, 10,000 is only a ballpark figure. For older people, maybe even 7,000, 8,000 is sufficient. But anything below 7,000 is not good unless you're bedridden or something else. A normal human being should walk much more than that. But for a youngster, you can aim for 12 to 15,000, 18,000 steps. And I know people who do 25,000 steps a day. They're always walking. And it's changed the culture of people after getting these technologies. It'll help you. And you're in the computer field. You should be able to get it on your watch, on your computer, on everything, on your phone, everything. It should be able to do that. So these are simple tools to do that. Next is healthy eating. Eat more fruit and vegetables because people don't eat enough fruit. People eat, all kinds of junk food. But you ask them, are you taking vegetables? They don't take it. And if they take it, they eat overcooked vegetables. After all the, nutrients are gone away. So eat fresh salad, whether it's tomato or cucumber or carrot or whatever you can eat raw. Clean it, but eat it raw without even cooking it or boiling it. That's very, very good. Gives you all the phytonutrients if you need. Green tea will look great. Any tea is okay, but green tea is even better. Fruits. You must eat at least 1 to 2 fruits per day. Even if you have diabetes, you can eat 1 or 2 fruits per day. So these two simple things will take care of your health. And then, of course, cutting down on carbohydrate. I mentioned about rice being a villain. So does it mean you should not eat rice? You can eat rice, but the way you eat it is take the thali, the plate, fill half the plate with vegetables to start with. In fact, put the vegetable first on your plate. We don't eat like that. We first put the rice and sambar, then rasam and rice, then curd rice, then the fourth one, something like this we go on. So instead of that, you first put the vegetables. How many types of vegetables? I have 2-3 vegetables I can make, put that. Then find where is my protein. If you're a vegetarian, look for Bengal gram, green gram, black gram, soya, mushroom, whatever you can get from vegetable sources, a glass of milk, curd, whatever. You can get that. And if you're a non-vegetarian, of course, you can get fish, chicken. Okay, and you can easily get your vegetarian, you can get your protein. For vegetarian, a little more difficult, but you can still get it. If you focus on it, you can still get it. After that, only you go to your rice or chapati. So one chapati is enough for you, or a few spoons of rice is enough for you, because that is just enough to give you that balance. 1 or 2 spoons of rice with the first meal, another 1 or 2 spoons with the next thing, and that's enough, because all the nutrients you've already got. So it's not necessary to load yourself with rice. This becomes a very healthy diet, not only for people with diabetes, for any condition, anybody after a certain age, after 20, 30 years of age. I think this is the healthiest diet. If you do that, you'll have so much of energy, because if you take too much of these carbohydrates, you'll feel dull. So whereas here you'll have a lot of energy within you. So this exercise and this, in addition to that, just do a little pranayama. Breathing is very, very important. Of course, stretching is also very good. So if you're able to do the full yoga, that's fine. But at least the pranayama part. So that will help to reduce, first of all, in COVID time, it will improve your lung function. Second, it builds immunity. Third is, it will reduce your stress. When you do deep breathing, your stress levels come down. And stress is the most important factor for reducing your immunity. So all this, I think, every day you should do. 365 days, you should do all this. Without that, you should not go to sleep, without having completed all this. If you just make it like that, then you're living a healthy life. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in front of the computer. What about a surgeon who's operating for 8 hours, 10 hours? They're also stuck to something and they're doing. Every occupation, what about a lawyer who's stuck in a court for so many years? Everybody has this problem. But you must look after your own health, knowing that you're at extra risk. And not say, no, I'm in the computer field, therefore I cannot do. Giving excuses is very easy. But you must look after yourself.
Okay, there is a question regarding the electronic medical records.
Okay.
In terms of, the privacy and security and other issues. Would you like to highlight some?
Yeah, I think that can be very easily taken care of because, when you are, first of all, you get informed consent from the patient before we analyze any data. And only anonymized data, we look at it. Even then, you can have firewalls. So many I don't have to tell you people. So you build in so many firewalls, or if you have a password, even if you give the patient access to the data, he or she can only see their data and they cannot alter that data. They can only see the data. And so we are now developing an app whereby your own data, anytime you can have it in your cell phone, you can look at it. So tomorrow you're going to New York, you can show it there to the doctor, and this is my records. But you cannot touch anybody else's data and you cannot alter that data. You cannot, what is there, So there are systems by which we can easily bring that in. And if you're analyzing mass data, we can remove the name, remove the date of birth, you can remove the address, you can remove everything, and then anonymized data you can use for data analysis. So I think there are ways of getting over this problem.
Okay, you are mentioning about eating fruits is advisable. Is there any specific fruits we must take, or all the fruits are acceptable?
For people without diabetes, all the fruits are acceptable. For people with diabetes, the low glycemic index fruits, whether it is guava or apple or papaya or orange, would be better than, for example, say mango or grapes or jackfruit and so on, which are very high in glycemic index. But even they are nutritionally very good. So actually, if you go to YouTube, last week I made one on fruits, and the previous week I made one on mango. Both have become very popular because I'm saying eat it. No, because even if mango, how can I tell a person with diabetes not to eat mango? They're going to eat it anyway. So what I'm telling them is, okay, you want to eat your mango, that day you cut your rice a little bit and keep some space for your mango, Why should they have both, I'll take equal amount of rice and then I'll also have 2 mangoes. So I said, you have your mango, but that day I'm going to have my mango today. So a little bit rice, I'll take less, I'll take more of vegetables and be done with it. So you can enjoy your mango and there's nothing, the glycemic load will finally kind of equal out. And also mango has a lot of advantages as well. It's not a poison or anything that you're taking. And therefore, I think if you're careful, if you keep a record of what you're eating, what you're doing, and maintain that, then I don't see any reason. I see that Dr. Prakash is there in the audience. I was thinking it's a computer society, but I find Dr. Prakash there. In fact, I was just talking to him 2 days ago when Star Health called me for something. And, Dr. Prakash, if you're there, you can also play a very big role, by making, diabetes treatment part of the insurance, so that you kind of pay for people to go and have their checkup. I mentioned that 3-4 checkups a year. If insurance pays a small amount for them to go and have those checkups, you will prevent the complications. Instead of going and paying for kidney damage and for heart thing, there the insurance pays. But for a regular checkup, they don't pay. So I tell them you're being penny wise and pound foolish. So instead of that, incentivize them and say, we develop complication, we may not cover you. In the other way, you can say. Or incentivize and say, if you bring down your HbA1c, will further reduce your premium because your risk is going to go down. And of course, if somebody has a...
I totally agree with you, Mr. Mohan. Very, very vibrating and very positive and highly informative talk. And I totally agree that we as insurers should come forward so that we can minimize complications.
Correct. We'll work on that, Dr. Prakash. I told you I have a model. My idea is to make India diabetes complications free. We cannot make India diabetes free because age is a non-modifiable risk factor. Family history is a non-modifiable risk factor. Father and mother have diabetes. You cannot change your father and mother. But definitely you can change your habits and you can prevent the ABCD is very easily achievable. If you focus on that, nobody will develop complications. That's all we want. People will live up to 100 and they should be fine. That I think is achievable. Having proved it in some, I believe now we should now scale it up to everyone.
Okay, there is a question about self-monitoring, sir. There are gadgets like AccuCheck and things are available, but unfortunately, sometimes it seems that the measurements what they show, like the fasting reading is, the PP reading is lower than the fasting reading. So this type of inaccuracy, how to take into account, and then will it make someone worried and anxiety level goes up? What happens?
So if the postprandial is lower than the fasting, it doesn't mean the machine is wrong. Physiologically, it can happen because very often people think after eating it should go up. Yes, it should go up, but it will go up after 50 minutes or 45 minutes. You are testing it after 2 hours. By the time it will go up, your insulin release will come, your medicine will work, and it will come down. So it doesn't mean that if your fasting is 120 and postprandial is 110, it's wrong. It's also correct. It would from 110 to gone to 180 after 30 minutes, 40 minutes. That time you didn't check. You are checking after 2 hours. At that time it is low. It's also correct only. So nothing wrong. Machines nowadays are very good. In fact, the accuracy level is more than 95%, 98%. If you don't do it properly, if you don't poke yourself properly, or you don't clean your machine, or the strip is kept open, you keep the moisture gets in, then you will get all wrong results. Otherwise, we have done the whole in-lab study using glucometer only because there is no lab. Where do you go in Nagaland and get a lab there to do testing? We had to use glucometer only. With that, we got it published in Lancet. So they would not publish it unless it is reliable. No, how much they see all the raw data before they publish it. So you can use it properly, but the technology must be used properly. If you know how to use the technology properly, I think glucometers are very good now. And today you have the patches and all that. So you wear the patch, you don't even have to poke yourself. With a glucometer, you will get one reading for every poke that you do. Here, without a poke, you're getting 100 readings in a day. And with that, a graph is coming. And it was say once in 2-3 months, you put that, then no need to do the glucometer at all. Every 2-3 months, you put 14 days. It costs about 2,000 rupees. You just put that. That is enough. Every 3 months, you see what it is. Even once in 6 months you do, that is enough. It will tell you how it is if you are well controlled. So there are ways of getting over this, and technology today can be used very, very effectively.
Okay, in terms of diabetics, certain parameters, the index parameters like A1 less than 7,
yeah.
And then the fasting reading, less than 100,
yeah.
And then the PP reading 160 to 180. So these are all international standards. Are there anything we have done for our Indian condition because of the biodiversity is different? And also there has been some, recent past, I have seen some published report where that the A1 index 8 is okay. And then similarly, the PP beyond 250 is also okay. I don't understand the veracity of the information what has been in circulation.
It's totally fake.
But, so are we developing our own parameters for India, or these international standards, is it still applicable for India?
Yeah. So I'll answer it both ways. We have the Indian data. What is INDIAB? INDIAB is a whole country. We have urban, rural, age-wise, male, gender, female. You ask me 20-year-old, 80-year-old, I'll give you every data for every state of India we have. There is very little human variation. See, the human variation is so little. We cannot say in Jharkhand 180 is normal, in Tamil Nadu 100 is normal. It's not like that. Human beings are human beings all over the world. White, black, yellow, doesn't matter. Human beings are still, even chimpanzees are quite close to us. 99%, they're also the same. So human beings, 99.999%, they're the same. Only 0.001% will vary. So the normal values don't vary that much. Certain things will vary. For example, the HDL cholesterol levels. We have very low HDL cholesterol level. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of high carbohydrate diet. Westerners have much more. But glucose and all that, hardly it varies. So the values are still the same. Now the normal HbA1c is 5.6. Up to 7 is for a diabetic to prevent complications.
Dr. Mohan, you can unmute yourself. Please unmute. Just mute.
When did I mute?
No, it has got muted. Yeah, please unmute.
Okay, I didn't mute it. Okay, so what I'm saying is, it's only partly true that 8% HbA1c that you talked about, in older age group, it's okay. Somebody is 80, 90 years old, we don't want 7%, they'll get hypoglycemia. So up to 8% is okay, but 250 and all is too high for even a 100-year-old person. 250 is too old. They'll develop urinary infection, they'll develop other problems. Instead of 140, we'll say 160 is okay. Or 160, we may say up to 180 is okay. Above 200 is high for anybody. Even at 105 years, it is still too high. You will develop infections and you'll develop problems. So there are minor variations, which anyway, we don't treat everybody in the same way. Somebody has a heart attack, we won't treat him in the same way. So that kind of natural fluctuation we anyway do. But this 8% and 250 and pharma is driving it, and all these are, WhatsApp, lies which go on again and again, perpetuated by people. So that is not true. Fundamentals still remain the same. It's still 7% for everyone, unless it's an exception. And then we'll say, உங்களுக்கு 7% வேண்டாம், உங்களுக்கு 7.5 போதும், 8 போதும். We ourselves will tell, I'll write in the case sheet, don't aim for 7 for this person. He will be getting a low sugar. It's dangerous for him. So we will think. But in a 30-year-old, you can get 5.6. You can get 6 easily. Why should you aim for 7? Right? Make it normal for a young person. So it varies from patient to patient.
Okay, see, the diabetes, as you are mentioning, it is a lifestyle disease, sort of disorder, and where it can be controlled. But does it really, the treatment, sometimes, the hospitalization also becomes essential. Where does that hospitalization comes in terms of diabetes treatment?
Only if there's an emergency. So suppose they have a, surgery to be done, or if there is a foot problem, diabetic foot problem, infection. If you don't admit, it will spread like wildfire, it will spread and they'll end up with a high amputation. So that is one situation. Sometimes if they come in a diabetic coma, blood sugar is 700, 800, it's dangerous you cannot treat them outside. You'll have to admit them and give insulin and saline and so on. So an emergency, any emergency we'll admit. Then sometimes for teaching purposes, somebody comes from very far away, 1,000 kilometers away, and they don't know anything. One day we'll keep them in hospital to just teach them how to small child, how to take insulin. That may be one. Any surgery, for a major surgery, abdominal surgery, any other surgery, we admit them. Foot is one of the 50% of people get admitted for diabetic foot. Otherwise, diabetes is an outpatient treatment. Out of our 50 branches that we have, 48 are outpatient clinics. Only one in Gopalapuram and one in Hyderabad, Domalguda. Only these two are hospitals. Otherwise, we don't admit at all. We treat as outpatient basis only.
Okay. Many times, for treating different diseases, they make blood sugar testing compulsory.
Yeah.
And then, sometimes, the treatment gets postponed for days together to bring down the blood sugar level and thing. Is there any way that we can temporarily bring down the blood sugar and then get the other treatment be continued?
We can. If there is an emergency.
Are there any implications for that?
So you should get the sugar under control before you put the knife. Suppose an eye surgery or some other surgery, you go and put a knife and the sugar is high, you'll get infected and then you lose the eye. So you have to get the sugars under control. As an outpatient, reasonably within 5 to 6 days, you can get it under control. In inpatient, 1 day to 2 days is enough. So suppose day after tomorrow, I have to do my surgery. Okay, you get admitted today. Tomorrow, I'll control, give you the certificate. So they stay for 24 hours. We quickly give the, the insulin or whatever, bring it down, get it under control. Then we certify that they're fit and then we send them off. So depending on the nature of the surgery or the nature of the thing, we can do it. Suppose somebody says, no, I'm not in a hurry. Next month only I'm planning. Then it's okay. You come back after 2 weeks, see me. By the time sugar is under control, we have got time. There are methods. We can even give insulin intravenously to bring it down in 3 hours, 4 hours if the emergency situation needs it, COVID or something like that, where life is at risk. We can bring it down in 2-3 hours if you like. It's not an
Okay.
issue.
Recently, I mean, for the past few years, Apple, Google, Amazon, they all seem to be getting into diabetes treatment.
Yeah.
Some sort of experiments, they have been doing it. Would you like to give some highlights on the type of research what they are doing, whether they are all reliable, how it will be useful to countries like India and so on?
They're fairly reliable. I mean, I see Google is one of the big things that they did was the diabetic retinopathy thing, because they have developed the software for artificial intelligence. And while we were working on it, Google is already working on it. Sundar Pichai keeps talking about this all the time. It's quite reliable. But when they tried to scale it up to to all the clinics and so on, they ran into problems. Sometimes errors in the thing. There could be legal issues. Suppose you completely give it to a computer. The computer makes a mistake. Like anybody can make a mistake. Human can make a mistake. Computer cannot make. Then what happens? Based on that, if you treat wrongly, so these legal implications also have to be. But they're getting better and better. No doubt about it. And I think wellness has become something which everybody has got into it, because 10,000 steps. How do you get 10,000 steps? You can't be counting. You need their help to do it, to find out. Diet, for example, you take your diet and you put it in, it will tell you how many calories it was there. You take a picture of your diet, it will tell you how many calories. For all this technology is needed, and they have high-end technology. So that way, it becomes thing. But the human element is always necessary. You should always be able to override. For example, when you do an ECG, it will say that you got a heart attack, but finally there will be nothing there. It will be an instrumental error. So a human being should be always able to override the computer. But the computer helps him, because even if you take a human being, fatigue will set in. Suppose I have to read manually 500 eye pictures. By the time I do 100, my quality will start coming down. Computer can do 1,000 without any fatigue. So that way there are advantages of the computer. I think we should live with the technology, adopt the technology, but not become a slave to technology. We should be able to override and say, this is wrong, and therefore I'm overriding that. So once we work like that, it reduces the work of the human beings and makes us better, smarter, sharper, better.
Okay. Again muted, sir.
Again muted, huh? No. I'm not
Okay.
muted.
Yeah. Not able to properly hear.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now it's okay.
Okay.
There is one more question regarding the food, Basically, you are suggesting raw vegetables.
Yeah.
I think so much of fertilizers being used, and these raw vegetables themselves, they become toxic. Is there any alternatives or some?
Wash it. Just wash it. Any fertilizer, nothing which water cannot remove. So you just wash the vegetables twice. If you do that, 95%, 98% of the pesticides will go away. And of course, organic vegetables, if you get them, there's no pesticides, but you don't know if it's really organic or not. Washing is the best thing. If you just wash the vegetables well, then you have got rid of not only the pesticide, but also many of the germs and things also you've got rid of it. The rest of it, of course, when you cook, the rest of it goes away. But there is a small danger of that, but still overcooking the vegetables kills all the nutrients inside. So as far as possible, as nature made it, you should be able to take it.
Yeah, and also there is a question regarding correlation between meditation and diabetes. So
we don't have too much data. We have more data on the heart and more data on blood pressure. But definitely, that's why I mentioned pranayama. Definitely, there are some cases which are stress-induced diabetes. They're always worrying, and their cortisol level is going up and the adrenaline is going up. In those cases, when you do meditation, the hypothalamus is controlling the pituitary and all the other hormones, and therefore the sugar can come down. So I would encourage people to meditate. If nothing else, even if it doesn't control diabetes, definitely improve your health. It's good for your longevity. So it's very good.
Okay. And there is one question regarding your advice on usage of insulin rather than taking tablets for a person having 130 fasting and 178 pp.
Why should you use insulin? I mean, insulin is only needed for people with type 1 diabetes, where if you don't take insulin, you'll die. a child with then this is the 100th year of insulin discovery. In fact, yesterday and day before yesterday we had the insulin
celebration.
Celebration. So in children or adults with type 1 diabetes, you have to take insulin 4 times a day. If you don't take it 4 times a day, you will not, and if you stop the insulin, of course, you'll die. So that's as simple as that. In type 2 diabetes, in certain situations, when you have infection, severe diabetes, for a short term, you may need insulin, 1 week, 10 days. Such people can take it. After 20-25 years of diabetes, some people will need insulin. So those people can also take. But the majority of patients with type 2 diabetes and the majority of all diabetic patients don't need insulin at all. With diet, exercise, and tablets, they can control their, only when needed, you have to take insulin. It's not that insulin is superior to tablets. That has been shown by other studies, that tablets are as good as insulin. It's a control which matters. It's a HbA1c which matters.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohan, for your excellent presentation. Also, the interactive Q&A with diverse questions coming up. You are able to clarify many of the doubts what you are having. And then one more question regarding number of videos on YouTube. They've been talking about a lot of herbal as well as some of the home medicines. They can be taken. Overnight. You can control your diabetes. Like things like that. You eat something. Keep it in water, soak it in water for a day, and then next day morning, empty stomach, you take it. And then try it for a week, and then you will find your diabetes for lifelong. You don't have to take any medicine, things like that.
I wish it was so simple. It's like
how to take them seriously. Is there any way?
Don't watch them. Don't watch wrong things, and you must know what to watch it. See, for everything there's scientific evidence. If you ask that guy, how many people have you tried? The answer is immediately obvious. He would not have studied even 10 people. He would have said, I saw my grandfather take it. Well, that's a hypothesis. If your grandfather's taken it to work, it's a hypothesis worth testing. It doesn't become a truth. It doesn't become science until it is done in a proper randomized clinical trial fashion. Many of the observations that we make in even clinical practice, we say, when we did like this for 50 people, it worked like that. So it must be true. When we actually put it through the trial, it fails. It doesn't really work. So you have to do, the ultimate test is a randomized clinical trial. One group should not get it. The other group should get it. And then you will show that this group alone worked, that group did not work, and therefore this is true science. It will not stand the test of time. All these shortcuts and gimmicks and all that will not stand the test of time. And today, the other big thing is reversal of diabetes, Every fellow is saying diabetologists only treat the disease. We reverse it. If it is reversing, why is diabetes going up like this? We are measuring it and telling you 2% will become 25%, 25% going to become 30%. Where is all the reversal happening, So, in a small, nothing is, impossible. In a few cases, a lot of obesity is there. You lose 15, 20 kilos in weight. Naturally, you can go back and your diabetes will go away and you can reverse it. So I'm not saying it cannot happen. But what they are saying is everybody will reverse it. Even after 20 years, you will reverse it. Even those on insulin will reverse it. Impossible. It's just not possible. After a certain stage, its reversal is not. As long as you are able to live your healthy life. What I am saying is live up to 100 with healthy life. Doesn't matter if you have diabetes. What does it matter?
It is like seawater seeping into our groundwater levels, right?
Exactly.
Something is just impossible to reverse.
Impossible.
Okay. One last question, sir. This is regarding about so many apps are available both in Google Play and this one. How to take them and what type of precautions we need to take into account while using those apps?
Well, as an app, it may be good. If it's just telling you how many steps you measured and what you ate, and if you're able to put your glucose value in it, and to that extent, if you're able to use it, I don't see any reason for not using an app. An app is only helping you to keep a record of whatever you're doing. So I have nothing wrong with the apps, and many of the apps are excellent. Even both on Google as well as other apps, Apple Watch as well as Samsung. You go to Android phones, anything. You have so many apps which are very good. They are very great motivators. For example, if you take the Apple itself, I'm not promoting Apple or anything, but I'm using it and I find it very good. The moment you have hit your, the 3 rings, for those of you who use it, One is you must finish 45 minutes of your exercise. Second is you must burn the calories, whether it is 500 calories, 400 calories, whatever you set. And the third is you're getting up every hour, 12 hours. All the three, there are 3 rings, and you close the 3 rings. Ever since I got that Apple Watch, not one day I'm not closed the ring, not even one day, you know. It's become part of my culture. I have to close the 3 rings. I have to do it. It's a sign of my health. So it's motivating you to do something. So why not use it? There's nothing wrong in it, and it's just helping you. A human being cannot keep on telling you that, whereas an instrument is telling you that. So in fact, if I start walking, it'll immediately tell me, why haven't you switched on the button to say that you're starting to walk? There's an outdoor walk, an indoor walk. Sometimes I forget to press that button. It'll say you've been walking now for 5 minutes. Why you haven't pressed that button to record what you're walking? You know, to that extent, it is following you. The AI is so good that it's following you. So it's, as long as it's helping you, it's good. But don't use it for treatment, and don't use it for finding out whether. Don't Google medicines and then start using. They are all not reliable, and they're not licensed, and they can spoil your health. So be very careful with medicines. With lifestyle, it's good. Nothing wrong in it.
Thank you, Doctor. PVS, can you do the formal vote of thanks?
Sure, sir. Good evening, participants. On behalf of CSI Chennai, ACM Chennai, IEEE CS Madras chapters, I thank Professor M.S. Ananth, former Director, IIT Madras, for giving an excellent overview on research and incubation, and also for releasing the book, Making Excellence a Habit. I thank the resource person, Padma Shri Dr. V. Mohan, Chairman and Chief Diabetology, Dr. Mohan's Diabetes Specialty Center, President and Director of the Madras Diabetes Research Foundation, and author of the book, Making Excellence a Habit, for giving a very useful and interesting presentation on combating killer disease, diabetes, perspectives of technology-assisted research. I thank our other organizers, Mr. H.R. Mohan, Chair ACM Chennai, for arranging this memorable event, Dr. P. Sakthivel, Chair IEEE CS Madras Chapter, and Dr. Akila, Management Committee Member of CSC Chapter, for their support for this event. I thank all the participants who attended this event and made it very eventful. Thank you.
Once again, I would like to thank on behalf of the organizers, and of course, Professor Ananth and Dr. Mohan. You know, in spite of your busy schedule, you are able to spend almost 2 hours with us. Though we promised we'll leave in 1.5 hours, but you know, it has exceeded our time limit of 1.5 hours. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation, being present with us. And before we formally wind up our today's program, there are a few announcements regarding our forthcoming events. On 20th of this month, we have how no code is changing the way we build software systems. And on 24th, we have demystifying cryptography and encryption algorithms. On 27th, we have ethical practices in research writing. On 3rd of April, performance appraisal during COVID-19 and work from home scenario. And on 10th, we have demystifying blockchain, architecture types, platforms, and tools. So these are some of our forthcoming programs. We have already started sending invitations. Please do register and attend and get benefited. So with this closing note, we would like to once again thanking the speakers and Dr. Mohan, Dr. Ananth, and all the participants for your time in spending with us this evening. Thank you very much, and good night to everyone.
Thank you, Mohan.
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.